You know what? I looked everywhere. I looked on Google, on Wikipedia, YouTube, everywhere, and I just couldn't find it. I'm talking about the definition of perfect sex. We as a species, humans, are flawed and imperfect. And yes, we're slowly beginning to embrace that. But also we as a species chase the idea of perfection. We want the perfect naukri, the perfect chokri, the perfect house, and now even perfect sex. But can perfect sex even be a reality? I have so many things to say about this, but where are my manners? Firstly, welcome to our show, Allo, #AskTheSexpert, a space where we invite sexual health and wellness experts to talk about pleasure, sex, health, and most importantly, to answer all your questions so that you can have better sex backed by science. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So like I told you, we're going to talk about the idea of perfect sex, and of course I had to bring someone on who has a lot of knowledge about this. So today I have with us recurring expert Kanusha, who is an in-house therapist with Allo Health. Welcome Kanusha, how are you doing?
Thank you very much Artika. I think you've maintained a pretty good theme of having some very interesting talks and experts, yes, that also. So yeah, what do we have today?
Yeah, so we want to talk about just in general, the idea of perfect everything. Okay. And we often hear people say that, oh, I had the best sex of my life, or I had the most perfect sex. But can something like sex, which is actually a very, very subjective experience, be defined as perfect? So, what is perfect sex in your opinion? And is it even something?
It is something for a person or for a couple, right? Mm-hmm. So perfect sex for someone could be maybe just getting sexually intimate just in their bedroom. Perfect sex for someone else could be maybe going to a hotel or just having, really a very different environment. So again, just coming back to the whole, it being very subjective, it being very personal, it's important for couples to discuss, right? Talk about what you like, what you dislike, what you find very sexually arousing.
Right.
So as long as you like what you're doing, your partner likes what they're doing, I think that's what perfect is. If both of y'all are satisfied, that's perfect.
Yeah, and even for people without partners, right? Their idea of perfect sex could be solo sex and masturbation in some perfect way, which fits their fantasies.
Yes, exactly. So I think everything just boils down to it being very subjective.
Right.
There is no universal perfect sex. You just pursue something that doesn't even exist, basically.
And also very incorrectly, a lot of people start naming and putting labels and saying this, if this happens, then that's perfect. If this happens, then that's perfect, which is incorrect, right?
That again is based on their experience. So they assume it's, applicable to everybody else.
Got it. And, I'm just wondering, instead of perfect, what is another word which we can use to describe sex? And I'm wondering if it's better. So if you're not satisfied with your sexual experience, maybe you can aspire to a better form of it. Does that make any sense? Is that a concept?
Sure. Yeah, I think in a certain context, it's probably, what could make sex better is starts with just communication, right? So you feel you don't like something, maybe talk to your partner about it, or just try and maybe explore other things. And that's one of the ways you come to know, or even maybe things you didn't know yourself, that's how you identify it. So one thing is communication. The second thing is maybe ensuring you're very comfortable, nothing's pressured, of course. The third thing is not falling prey to just pressure and what typically is good for others.
Right.
So focus on what you find good, focus on what you find comfortable, and I think that's what generally gets better, right? That's what's nice.
Yeah. And I think every time I have you here, I learn a little bit about the science side of things. So I have to ask you a question. Scientifically, do you think there are certain ways, tips, techniques that can make sex better, whether it's solo sex or sex with a partner? Can we make it better? Are there some strategies that one can use?
Not scientifically, none that I know of at least, but basic things like maybe focusing more on foreplay. And there's something called the erogenous areas, if you're aware of, right? So they're basically just sexually sensitive areas on the body. And it can just vary and differ person to person. So one person could say it's maybe the neck, someone else probably find the wrist. And many times, people aren't even aware of what their erogenous areas are. So that's where it actually gets very interesting. So, spending time exploring these areas, engaging in foreplay, not rushing into intercourse, because that's not the only way of form of sexual pleasure. So I think these are a couple of things that scientifically, you know, make sex better.
Right. I think the one big question that I wanted answered today was, can sex be perfect? And I think we've established that.
Broadly, yes.
And that, you know, perfect is a very subjective idea. So sex for you could be perfect in a certain way and it could differ for another person. And that's basically the baseline of today's question and argument, right?
Yes.
Okay, but if I had to ask you, if you could provide us and all of the audience members some sort of a checklist for good sex, better sex, what is your go-to checklist that one should keep in mind?
I think I would start with just a few basic things, such as, you know, ensuring the environment's comfortable, because if you're comfortable with your partner, the sex is good, but the environment isn't nice, then half your mind's going to be there, right? So ensure the environment's good, ensure you're very, of course, comfortable with your partner. It's great if you're able to talk of likes, dislikes before engaging in sexual intimacy. Maybe talk about things you want to explore, things you want to maybe try out. Of course, wearing condom, I think, again, helps with avoiding dealing with unpleasant effects later. That's also one way of just ensuring you're relaxed and comfortable with what's going on. So I think these are, again, just a few basic things to keep in mind. Otherwise, it's just each to their own.
Yeah. I mean, and if I could just add to your checklist, especially if we're talking to cis-het couples, one of the things is to go beyond penetration, because again, I think there is so much undue pressure that goes into telling couples that they must be participating in penetrative sex for it to be sex, while there's so many other things that you can explore and enjoy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Very much, yes.
Right. So I think it would be just great if I just took up some audience questions, because I think you've answered all of my questions already.
Yes, let's do that.
So, right. So you already know this is a section called Ask Your Question, where we crowdsource questions from all of our viewers. And you can send us your questions anonymously. We do leave a link in the description. So if you've not asked us any questions so far, now is the time to do so. Great, Kanusha. Can I take you through today's questions?
Please.
So the first question we have today is, where should I learn how to have sex from?
Okay, so I think, you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about how they want to explore how sex is just by themselves. They prefer just, you know, having their own narrative of it, their own definition. So that could be one way. Either you just, you know, obviously talk to your partner about it and say, this is what we'd like to try out and this is my idea of it. And then it just sort of takes its own course. If not, you know, if someone wants to specifically learn about it, then ideally, it would be great if you could talk to someone you're comfortable with, someone you trust. So either, you know, parents or a sibling or a friend or a cousin. And I understand this can be quite difficult sometimes, of course, but as I said, it's an ideal situation. But if not, again, Dr. Google's always there. So, but then again, you know, that I think it's important to be able to understand, you know, certain information is helpful, but then some of it can not be very helpful and direct you not a very pleasant way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this is a curiosity which is there in a lot of young people's mind, which is like, where are we going to learn how to have sex from? And then they start resorting to like watching porn or, like you said, searching on the internet. And I think we also want to share today that sex is an experiential experience, right? Like you have it and then you learn about it and so on and so forth. So it doesn't, again, using the word perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. It doesn't even have to be perfect for the 80th time, right?
Absolutely.
It's kind of a journey that through your own growth, you learn what you like and what you don't like. And then if you are someone who has a partner, you also learn about their likes and dislikes. So, absolutely. And I think what a better world it would be if we were in a society where parents, peers, teachers, everybody had enough information to talk about all this, right?
Yes. I think that's something we're trying to work on.
Right, right. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to take you to the next question now. My boyfriend doesn't like wearing a condom, but I'm scared that I'll get pregnant. What should I do?
Well, you're going to have to talk about it with him very honestly, because, you know, condoms very important to avoid unplanned pregnancies and also avoid possible transmission of infections.
Right.
So I wouldn't see any other safe way out of this. And, you know, I think, like we've been discussing, one of the ways of having a very good sexual intimacy or sexual experience with someone is when you communicate likes, dislikes, comforts, discomforts. So I think it's very important that, you know, she talks to her boyfriend and says, look, I'm really not comfortable and it's not something worth, what's the word? Not dicing. What is that word? Just when you say that you just sort of take your chances.
You're not open to taking that risk?
Something. Let's just stick to that. Yeah, basically that. But it would be a very important thing to stick to.
Right. And I think also, like, if this person's boyfriend doesn't have a uterus, ultimately, if communication, etc., doesn't work, the person with the uterus should get to take the
better
call
way
for
of
this
putting
one.
that. Yes, yes.
Right. Okay. Just going to move on to the third question, which is, okay, I had sex for the first time and accidentally farted. I'm so embarrassed to call her again, but I do like her. What should I do?
So if you like her, you should be able to like farting in front of her. You know, I think it's okay. It's just, you know.
I don't think this is a sexual health
It's
question
definitely
at all.
not. You know, maybe the sex was that good and so your body is also very happy and so you're just farting away to happiness.
Yeah.
So,
and people with vaginas have something called queefing, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's again because of the, you know, pressure put and just the whole gas coming out. But I think just tell her you like her and so you just farted because you're just very happy. Just put it that
so I
way.
think this person just needed moral support from our expert.
So. And you have it from us, yes.
Okay, the last question for today. Will taking contraception pills regularly affect my chances of getting pregnant in the future?
It wouldn't. If you take hormonal contraceptives, they don't. At least they haven't been proven to do so.
Yeah.
So it's okay. But then I think speaking slightly away from this, it's important not to overtake contraceptives because they, you know, sort of mess around with the hormones a bit. It's just not advisable in general. So maybe stick to using it as an actual emergency pill, like it says.
Maybe this question is about oral contraceptive pills like OCPs and not emergency pills. In that case?
Either way, it wouldn't affect pregnancies for sure. Yeah.
Got it. So that was my last question for the day. And thank you so much again for being here. And like, you're such a constant and we all love talking to you and sharing questions with you. And a lot of the questions come directly for you, by the way.
Okay, thank you so much.
How do you feel about that?
Very flattered. Thank you very much.
Amazing. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. And we love reading your comments, your emails. So please keep them coming. Again, a reminder that you can ask your questions directly to our experts anonymously. There is a link in the description. And I will see you all very, very, very soon. Now I have to go and plan for the next episode and read all your comments. So I'll see you again. Take care until then.
As a sexpert.